Hello, everyone. Welcome to Screen Junkies News. I'm Alicia Malone, joined by Mr. Dan Murrell, and making her very first appearance on Screen Junkies News, our good friend, Miss Mary Jetikin. I was trying to be like Miss Mary Jetikin. So, as you can tell from my very festive sweater, it is Christmas time. It's holiday break. Everything is slowed down. There's seriously not much news happening today, but we found something that came out on the 2nd of December that we thought would be interesting to talk to. We wanted to dive into it. So there was a casting call for Avengers Infinity War, and the casting call listed all the casts that are supposedly in the films, and they're going to be doing the two back-to-back. But they have listed pretty much everyone, haven't they, Dan?
Just about. I mean, obviously all of the Avengers are there. You've got Thanos. We know that for sure. Ant-Man. Interesting that Captain Marvel is on this list, which is a character we haven't even seen yet.
Yeah.
In the MCU. And, James Gunn has always been very coy about the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Guardians of the Galaxy, their own thing. They're all listed on here. And Nebula, which I thought was interesting because he's been really hyping up that Nebula is going to play a much bigger part in Guardians Volume 2. And she's on the casting list for Infinity War. So it kind of confirms what James Gunn, I think he ducks these questions because he doesn't only want questions about Infinity War. I get it.
Yep.
But it seems to confirm that, yes, the Guardians, of course, will be in the Infinity War with the Avengers, with everybody else, except for a couple of notable exceptions.
Yeah, and you see that they've got Ant-Man in there as well. Also Doctor Strange, and Benedict Wong is in the cast list too. Miri, who excites you the most that you hope to see in Infinity War?
Oh boy, I mean, I'm kind of just excited about the Guardians entering this space of the Marvel universe, because we haven't really seen them interact that much with any of the other Marvel characters. So it's going to be fun to kind of see Star-Lord and Cap maybe interact. I don't know. I'm looking forward to that. And I'm, the two Chris's. I don't know. I think it's going to be fun to see people collide. But it's also a little concerning, because if they do include all of these people, it's how are you actually going to tell a story? There's just so many characters obviously a lot of these are rumored, but there's so many characters to include that it's a bit of a head spin. My head's kind of spinning.
Yeah,
thinking about everybody.
It's like so many personalities
to
balance. Everyone has to have their moment. And then if you're introducing Captain Marvel as well, you've got to give her some kind of a backstory.
Well, and this is the first kind of, I don't even know if you want to call it official, but somewhat official confirmation that all these characters will actually be in this movie. There's been speculation, people assumed, but this is, you would have to assume someone at Disney looks at these casting calls before they get sent out, and this is, our first hint at it. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing to see how they take this movie. We already know they did kind of a course correction, because this was originally Infinity War Part 1 and Infinity War Part 2. We now know that it's not Infinity War Part 1 and 2, that they're going to be at least titled separately. So the first one's going to be Infinity War by itself. So how much do these characters play into this first movie? Are the Guardians in there at the end? Are they in the whole thing? I agree. There's so many characters right here. This is more characters, I think, even than were in Civil War. I get it. It makes sense. You're going to want to escalate it. This is the Infinity War. This is what they've been building up to. But with that change in course, where they're saying, this is not Part 1 and Part 2, and now we have all of these characters, I wonder how they're going to delineate these two movies, because they're still going to come out in consecutive years, but they had to have changed it from Part 1 and Part 2 for a reason. And I'm very curious to see what that reason is.
I wonder if maybe it's because they didn't want people to feel like they were doing the thing where you tell one big story and split it, like we saw with the Hunger Games, and we've seen with, Harry Potter, we've seen with a bunch of franchises. Maybe they wanted to move away from that, because I don't know. Personally, I would prefer to have two kind of unique films, even if one is a sequel of the other, which is the case for all of the Marvel movies, really, if you think about it, because you talk about the post-Avengers world, and it appears in multiple Marvel films. So I'm with it. I think it's a good choice, even though I don't know at all what it's going to mean.
Well, and you have the team, the Russo brothers, and then the screenwriters, Christopher Marcus, Stephen McFeely. These are the guys behind Winter Soldier. These are the guys behind Civil War. Yeah. And the one thing that we know, we've been lucky enough to talk to the Russo brothers a few times, is that they don't take this lightly, and they are very committed to storytelling. And I think somewhere along the way of writing this movie, they realized they would rather not do one story split across two movies. I think they probably broke the story somehow in a way that allowed them to say, no, these are two separate movies.
And they are actually quite skilled at balancing these huge ensemble casts. So talk me through what are the movies leading up to Infinity War? And when does Infinity War happen? I'm so confused by all the slates.
It's so hard to know because they've shuffled the release date.
Next.
Guardians Volume 2 is next.
Okay.
That's the big one. We meet back up with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
And we don't know the plot so far.
Not so far. We do know, like I said, James Gunn has said that Nebula will be a bigger part. She was kind of sidelined in the first movie. So we know that Nebula is going to be in there. We know that Yondu, Michael Rooker, is going to play a bigger part.
And hopefully another mixtape.
And
another amazing soundtrack.
I love the soundtrack.
Another amazing soundtrack. I believe that we are going to get Black Panther before we get Infinity War.
Okay.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think, comes out before Infinity War. But definitely upcoming in the imminent future we have 3 next year. We have Guardians Volume 2. We have Thor Ragnarok, which is going to bring the Hulk back into the mix. And we have Spider-Man Homecoming, which will have Iron Man in it. But it's interesting, Spider-Man, not on this list.
Spider-Man not on this list. Hulk not on this list. I don't
he's
think.
rumored.
I see him down there.
He's rumored. Yes, that's
rumored.
right.
He's got to be.
Like half the people on the
Wasp
list.
not on this list. But
No Evangeline Lilly.
no Evangeline
Or Michael
Lilly.
Douglas.
Were you surprised about the omission of Spider-Man? You two?
It didn't surprise me that much. I feel like Sony still has a stake in him, and I don't think Marvel really can use him with impunity. Plus, I don't know if he really should be there. This is much more of an Avengers story.
Right.
And I feel like the theme here seems to be like groupings of superheroes. So you have, the Guardians group, you have the Avengers / Cap group, and you have, I don't know.
And then you got like a bit of Doctor
You have a few one-offs. You got Ant-Man and, yeah.
And then Nick Fury.
So it's hard to say. I at this point, I don't see why Spider-Man would be necessarily left off the list, given that so many people are on the list. But you never know.
And Justin, our trusty producer,
thank you, Justin. So
has held up for us.
We're getting Black Panther before the first movie. Then after the first movie, we get Ant-Man and Captain Marvel, and then we get the conclusion of the Infinity, whatever you want to call it. Really, the conclusion, in my mind, to this entire saga thus far.
I mean, potentially that slate is taking us to 2019, which is a good 2 solid years away. Yeah. So, and that's a lot of films. And it kind of speaks to the larger trend in the industry of like slating out your films so far in advance. And it's going really well for them. We'll see what happens with DC films, I think they're a little younger in their trajectory, but it's definitely interesting. Yeah. Interesting to see all this come together.
Yeah, I'm so intrigued about how many characters they can possibly fit into a
That's
film.
crazy.
It's like a telephone booth thing.
Insane, yeah. I know, it's just going to be like cameos, just people walking past. Like, oh yeah. And then plus all the Easter eggs. I'm going to need your help when Infinity War comes out. Can you please sit next to me in the theater and just explain everything?
Yeah, I'll just write notes for you and just pass
that'd be
notes.
great. Be like, that's that guy. I'll be like, oh yeah. Terrible with these films. Dan Murrell, thank you so much for joining us.
Always.
You can find you at Murrell Dan.
At Murrell Dan on Twitter. And over the break here on Screen Junkies News, I know we've got some stuff that we filmed so that we don't go away during these holiday season. Some really fun stuff. So
awesome. Cool. So stay tuned here. And Miri Jetikin, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on all the social media at Miri the Jedi. And I'm also hosting a show called Vandemonium on HitFix via Uprocks.
Awesome. Thank you both. And if you want more Screen Junkies news goodness, this way, I think, click over here. Oh, no, this way. I always forget. Click over here. It's almost the holidays and my brain is fried. Subscribe to us, like and comment below. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SJ News. We'll see you soon. Happy holidays. Bye. Just hands.